when Bobby and Steve Leviniere contracted coronavirus at the same time, their families were understandably worried. The identical twins both ended up in hospital and were put on ventilators just 9 days apart.
Bobby, seen here on the right, made a full recovery, but Steve suffered multiple organ failures and inflammation of his brain. Well, 8 months on, Steve's wife, Julie, says he is in a minimal state of consciousness and unable to communicate. His family have made the agonising decision to put him into a specialist nursing home. And Steve's wife, Julie, and brother Bobby and his wife, Filma, join us now. Look, it's lovely to be speaking to you all this morning. Terrible that you're speaking to us for these reasons. Bobby, I know that you feel that there may be similarities that we experience, me with Derek being in a prolonged disorder of consciousness, and you yourself with your beloved twin. And in fact, actually, you first thought about the fact that this COVID could have impacted on him this way when Ben was interviewing me before I returned to the programme, didn't you? And thought, that's Steve.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. I mean, you know, like yourself, Kate, you just don't think anything like this would happen, do you know what I mean, to you or your loved one. But when we heard the story, we thought that's exactly the same as Steve, you know, because while it happened to Steve, even talking to the consultants in the first hospital Steve was at, East Surrey, there was minimal cases of what Steve had contracted, and it was all like a bit of a mystery, you know, and you're living through it and then you're not hearing anything else. We wasn't looking for anything, and then we heard about, obviously, what's happened to Derek, and we thought that's the same as Steve, with maybe a slight, you know, difference. But yeah, I mean, it's devastating. But I want to say, you know, before we continue, we're full of hope. You know, you'll hear our story. We're so full of hope, our family. You know, we've built, you know, on a foundation of love, and we're just full of hope that things will improve, you know.
Well, and that's the thing. And I guess one of the downsides of this horrific virus is that nobody knew at the beginning the damage it could cause and how widespread and long-term that was. And nobody knew, but nobody knows now, do they, about the recovery? They don't know how good or bad the recovery could be. So that does still give hope to cases like Steve. Did it start in the same way for both of you? Did it start as an infection of the lungs, basically?
Yeah, it started, you know, the story goes that we had a gig with DJ. We had a gig in Madrid, went on the Saturday, came back on the Sunday. On the Monday, because we do events, and we had to have a business call. On the Monday afternoon, I called him, and then I started losing my breath shortly, you know, just like 10 seconds losing the breath. And then straight after, Steve was doing the same thing on the phone. And we thought, oh, I think we've caught something. And then that week was sort of fine, you know, just on and off. It was nothing, it wasn't in bed or nothing. End of that week, I got a slight, you know, 0.5 of a higher temperature. And then it was the second week, on the Monday, I was just in bed. I was just in bed from the Monday to the Thursday. My temperature went to 39 degrees. My lovely wife was looking after me. I was upstairs in bed. I can't remember the last 2 days before I went to hospital, but she showed me a text when I came out, because my wife was sleeping upstairs in the loft, couldn't sleep in the same room with me, obviously for infection. She showed me a text, me texting her saying, I can't breathe, I need to go to hospital. Because obviously the government is saying, don't go to hospital, don't do this. So when I'm at home, I remember going to our local hospital, Whipps Cross, and then 5 hours later, I was told that they put me into coma. I woke up 6 days later, and I was in Barts Hospital in St Paul's. And it just went on from there. 4 days after that, I wanted to get discharged, so I said I need to go home, because they said I was a quick recovery. So I wanted to get home because I was in Barts Hospital and I couldn't want for nothing else. I've never been hospitalised before. You know, the food was great. I was eating all the food. The surroundings was magnificent. I was with the best consultants, best doctors. But I needed to get out of there to get home, because our family is built on the foundation of love, and I needed to get home. I asked to get discharged, and they said, no, you need to be in for another week. I said, no, I need to get home, because I needed that one important medicine that everyone needs, love and a cuddle. So I needed to get home for that. And well, before I got discharged, I got discharged on the Tuesday. On the Sunday before that, I got a call saying that Steve had gone in.
Well, actually, what happened was on the Sunday, I went to take Bobby's phone to him because he was allowed to have his phone when he came out of ICU. And when I had been in constant contact with Steve at this point because obviously he was really concerned for Bobby being in hospital. So I had sent a message to Steve on the phone to say, you'll be able to see Bobby later on today because he's, sorry, because you'll be able to see him later on today because he's out of ICU and I'm bringing his phone to him. And unfortunately, Steve never got that message because as I arrived at the hospital, I got a call from Julie telling me that Steve had been admitted that day.
Julie, I wonder, because of course you were watching Silma and talking to Silma undoubtedly while Bobby had been taken into hospital and was put into this coma, and you were going through that with Steve, who was also showing those signs, those initial signs of coronavirus. What was that like for you and for Steve at the time, knowing that Bobby had been so ill, and then all of a sudden, when there was this change, and it was your Steve that suddenly was admitted?
Horrendous. No other words to describe it, really. It was horrendous. You know, Steve was so worried about Bobby, but at the same time, Steve was obviously, we were both self-isolating and, you know, we were trying to help each other. And obviously his condition just started to get worse until on the Saturday, I kept saying to him, you know, do I need to take you to the hospital? And then Sunday morning, he woke up and just said to me, you need to take me to the hospital.
Julie, my heart goes out to you. I mean, it's horrific. It's horrific for all of you. You're now there, though. Mercifully, Bobby is recovered, but Steve is still very, very seriously affected. When did it become apparent that he couldn't wake up, for want of a better expression, that his lack of consciousness, his minimal state of consciousness was continuing? When did it become apparent that there was a big difference between how they both affected?
I think it was after about a week and a half to 2 weeks. I got a call. Well, I was told, obviously, by the doctors that that Steve, they were trying to reduce the sedation and they were trying to wake him up, and they said that they weren't having very much success with that, so they had to then keep putting him back into the sedation. He wasn't responding as they would have expected him to. So, for example, I think, you know, one of the things they say is squeeze our hand, and that wasn't happening. So then they said, they rung me and said, could I come into the hospital? And obviously, I'm sure you know, Kate, that's the last thing you want to hear.
Of course.
For them to ask you to come into the hospital.
It's unbearable. Bobby, has there been any explanation? Because, of course, physiologically, you are identical twins. And the doctors have this extraordinary case study of two brothers, two identical twins, that both get COVID, and one gets it so dramatically worse than the other. Has there been any explanation why he has ended up becoming more ill than you?
No, it hasn't. Obviously, we've been asking the question from day one, because, you know, genetically we're the same. And the first consultant at the hospital where Steve was said genetics had been blown away by this virus, basically. For the virus is overtaken genetically, it doesn't even come into it for their scientific things, what they do. But it's just baffling for us. You know, I was in for 6 days in a coma. I got out and I was a quick recovery. They say he was a quick recovery. And, you know, me and Steve are exactly the same weight. Even though we don't live together, we've been exactly the same weight all our life. You know, living in different households for so many years, the same way, we are exactly the same. Those people who know us, they know about Bobby and Steve. We are, you know, one of a kind. Forget the identical twin thing. We are so close, it's untrue. So, you know, we've stopped asking the question, why has this happened? Because the consultants and the doctors can't give us the answer.
They don't know, do they, Bobby? This is a problem. Look, no. Julie, one of the things that has been apparent to me, and is obviously apparent to you, is that this isn't a disease, a virus that affects just the lungs. It's affected all across Steve's body, hasn't it, with multiple organ failure. What are they telling you about the possibility of recovery?
They've basically said to me, we don't know whether he will or he won't recover. That's, you know, basically what they've said. I mean, you know, his liver, his kidneys, everything. He went into heart failure. All those things obviously are great now. He's breathing by himself. Everything else is you know, really well recovered. But you know, long term, we just don't know. But we just have to keep hoping and praying. And we're great believers in love, that the love and support that we show him will help. You know, everyone needs a bit of love. The amount of people that have said to me, oh, I wish I could give you a cuddle, I'd give you a hug. And, you know, having that love and support, we believe is so strong. When you're ill, if you have all that love and support, it helps. So when we could visit him, we were really fortunate at East Surrey Hospital. The amazing team there allowed us to visit, or for me to visit daily from the 19th of May through to the 30th of July when he was transferred to another hospital. During that time, every single day I was with him, I was holding his hand, I was telling him I loved him, I was FaceTiming with the family, because to us that's so important, so important.
You are extraordinary, Julie, listening to you talk in a similar way to how I sit back and I marvel at what Kate's managed to go through. And every day she picks herself up and she's got children that she's coping for and the rest of the family as well. And I know that we've talked about this and how important the support and love of the strangers that have contacted you and the difference that has made.
And people will be feeling the same for you, Julie, and feeling for you as well, and for all of you. And also the other thing as well, it's no comfort to the situation you're in, but it does provide people with a reality of what this virus can do. We know that it can kill, but it can also ruin lives, can't it, as well, even when the life isn't taken, and we have to have hope to get through it, don't we?
Hope. You have to have hope 100%. All the way you have to have the hope. And we're built on hope. You know, our family's built on hope and love. And, you know, we've got a great support network. And we want to take this time to thank all family and friends and everyone throughout the 8 months have sent their love, continued love and support. And, you know, Kate, we send all our love from the family to your family as well, because unless you're in this, it's lovely for people to say, oh, you don't even know the devastation. But you know, Steve's not on any life support machine. Steve's doing, for us now, Steve's doing great, OK? It's not a great situation, but brother's doing great. And brother, Steve is going to get through this. We have all the hope in the world, all right? We have all the hope.
Well, that hope and that positivity is shining through all three of you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing your story. And we just want to send all our love and support, Julie, to you, to Bobby and Silma and the whole family, and especially to Steve as well, because, you know, as you know, we have experience of it here firsthand with our friend Kate and what she's going through. And so we know how tricky and difficult it is in so many ways, particularly as we're approaching Christmas. And, of course, you're watching what's happening with lockdown and people flouting those rules. And you know firsthand just how devastating COVID can be if you don't take it seriously.
It's important for us to tell our story, definitely.
And we'll keep in touch and we'll talk, OK? OK, lovely to speak to you now, though.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
you
you
very much.
Thanks.
Just extraordinary. I imagine as well, from your perspective, that there is some support that comes from people that are going through what you're going through.
Well, yes, it is. It is, because it can feel very, very isolating, can't it? And it's wonderful that you know, that they were in a situation where they were allowed to visit, and those visits, and that has been made hard for so many people in so many situations, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, especially with lockdown. But yes, yeah, not good to hear that they're going through it, but nice to hear their positivity.
Undoubtedly, where there's life, there is hope.